Welcome back to Rocky Mountain Residential, a podcast from MTM Collective. I'm Kelly McBartlett.
I'm Blake McBartlett.
Today we're joined by Alison Schuman, the owner and founder of Springhaus. Alison, tell us about yourself.
Hi, I'm Alison. I have been in the design build world for 12 years. Grew up in it with my dad and mom building houses and fell in love with it, and here we are.
Awesome. So what initially drew you to interior design?
Nothing, actually. I started with construction, so the construction piece organically led me into the design, but I never grew up or set out to become an interior designer. I think I just learned that it was maybe a gift, or I was sort of good at it as we were doing construction projects early on.
How would you describe your style or your taste?
I don't have a specific style. So the great thing is I can be anything to anyone, but the one rule that I have is I like to design timelessly. I don't like fads. So if there is a client that wants something faddish, we'll introduce it through maybe a wallpaper or a light fixture or something that can be quickly changed. But my style's definitely more mature, maybe tends to be more masculine, and lots of wood, organic.
So with that in mind, what do you think you're best known for in the design world or even in Northern Colorado?
I would say quality, probably the quality of what we do. I tend to lean into higher end things, cabinetry, maybe custom light fixtures, tile that is specific for Springhaus. That'd probably be.
Yeah. Where do you start the design process? Is it just a collective overall theme, or do you kind of center the design on a certain signature space? But tell me a little bit about that.
Well, so if I'm lucky, I get to start with a client at architecture.
Okay.
And so that really gets me into it, and that allows me to get to know the client through that process. There are a lot of things that architects do fabulous, and then there's things that when you are actually in the field building, it doesn't make sense. So at that point, I get to know a client, I get to know what they like, I get to know what's important to them, and then we build off of that. So typically that's how we start. And then it just kind of organically happens from there.
What does that initial conversation look like? So whether you're at the ground level starting with architecture or not, what does that first conversation with clients look like?
So it typically is, I ask them for their inspiration photos. I mean, fortunately we live in a day and age where those are readily available.
Yeah.
And that just gives me a sense of the direction they're going, who they are. 99% of the time, their inspiration photos are all over the board. So then we dial it in to I kind of select the things that I think are important from my standpoint for the longevity of the home, so that in 20 years it's still going to look current, and then back into it from that point.
Do you do a full design build, also with furnishings?
We do.
Okay.
Yes. So that really, that makes it fun, because by the time we get to furnishing, we've done everything else together. So that just comes natural.
So for the scope of projects that you work on, what's a typical timeline?
Probably not any less than 2 years.
Okay.
But, if we're doing a pre-sold house where, I'm starting, they've hired me and I'm starting with the architecture, and we may or may not be building it, right? Another builder might be building it, or we might be building it. Those, if we're in a $4 million and up price point, that's a 3-year process almost, 2.5. Under that, it can be 18 months to 2 years.
Okay.
Interesting. So we're talking a lot about new construction right now. Do you ever do renovation projects?
I love renovations. So yes, we do renovations. And the great thing about a renovation for me is I'm locked into a box, right? So I am forced to become creative. I'm forced to make this thing that already exists function and look aesthetically pleasing and make sense, right? And typically an environment where it does it. That's why they're remodeling. So those stretch me a little bit further, but I love them.
It's a challenge.
Definitely.
Yeah, interesting. Does that change the way you talk with the clients? I mean, you're probably sometimes seeing their belongings in there. You're seeing their current style. What, like, do you have to tiptoe a little bit more? Do you?
Not necessarily, because typically if they've reached out to me for a remodel, the current style of the home isn't theirs, right? They've abandoned that. Either they bought the house and knew it wasn't theirs, or they had it at one point and they've left that behind. The conversation usually with remodels is, you know, what can we keep? What do you want to keep with this? And, you know, I mean, there's a remodel nowadays, there's a huge cost involved. So unfortunately, those are typically my first conversations. And
You're not saving any money by
absolutely not.
Yeah.
Absolutely not. People think that you are, you're not. It's just the facts.
It's like a labor of love more than.
It really is. And again, I think some of my best projects and favorite projects have been remodels because we were forced to be a little bit more creative than when you're starting with a blank slate.
Where does design meet function? And what do you prioritize, or how do you blend the two to make it like, the beautiful showroom is one thing, but living in it is another.
Right.
So how do you mix?
So again, that kind of for me starts at architecture, but if we're doing a remodel, we have to figure it out. I mean, every square foot of your house costs the same, right? So in my mind, every square foot needs to function. It needs to work. So I don't know necessarily how I do it because each project is different, but that's certainly something that's always at the forefront of my mind is this a waste? And if it is, how can we make it into something that somebody's going to use? Is it a small little area that we can make a little hearth through? Wine tapes, just whatever we can do to make it function. So
Yeah, that's great. We've been fortunate enough to actually live in one of the homes that you've designed in Old Town Fort Collins, and I will say every space was like really, really intentional, and it lived big. The square footage was really small, so
Yeah.
I really appreciate that about your thoughtfulness.
Yeah, absolutely. Speaking of that, we can walk in and see a house that you've designed. We can notice details. So you talked a little bit about things that are hallmarks for you, but what would you say you're most attractive to in terms of finishes or the way you execute cabinetry, or what is Alison Schuman when it comes down to it?
well, I would say that every house that you've probably ever been in of mine has as much walnut as affordable, right? It's obviously the most expensive wood, but it is timeless. It is beautiful always. So I think that that's a consistent for me. The style of cabinetry, I'm one that I am adamant and a firm believer that cabinets at 10 foot tall need to go all the way to the ceiling. I like to make a space in the kitchen, especially if I have the opportunity with a refrigerator, freezer, to make that look like a furniture piece instead of just your standard kitchen. And then, we can touch on lighting because I think lighting is important. Really, one of my favorite things right now are canned lights. I think so many people overlook that, but that can date a house so fast. So, if people are currently putting 4-inch cans in houses, they're going to be outdated in 2 to 3 years, right? 3-inch cans, 2-inch cans, 1-inch can, half-inch cans all exist. And so it's a big spend, but it's worth it. You don't change cans. That's a pain, right? So in 10 years, if you're on top of your can lighting, and that sets the mood overall, the tone, the way paint colors look, the way your furniture looks, the way artwork looks. So I think can lights get overlooked and they get forgotten, and it is truly one of the most important things. And nowadays you can get the great cans with no trim. So they're all drywalled in, so they kind of vanish in your ceiling, and you wonder sometimes when you step in a room where the light source is coming. So I have kind of set the decorative light fixtures on the back burner and put more budget into that area.
Now, well, it's interesting, and you're singing my I love lighting. Blake knows this about me, and I think it's so important. And when I'm hearing you talk about like can lights that are now like square and tiny because we have so many possibilities with LED. I think, as
Yes.
you're really describing.
Yep.
And I've seen some applications where it's flush in the drywall, which it looks beautiful. So really, really interesting.
Yeah.
So what do you think is the most overlooked thing that people don't consider when they're thinking about designing their new home, or from an architectural standpoint, or just a finish and design standpoint?
I think a lot of times bathroom layouts are overlooked from an architectural standpoint. From a design and quality standpoint, definitely interior doors. An interior door is everything. So I am wildly opposed to painting interior doors. If there's a budget that allows it, a solid wood, 1.75-inch door can absolutely change the feel of the house. If you've got this big, heavy, solid 8-foot door, you can have cheap hardwood floors and not notice that when you have these great doors. A door can absolutely set the tone. So I would say from design, that would be the number one thing that gets overlooked.
You do these like large scale projects. Sometimes people do have budgets.
Yeah.
Where's one thing or one area that you're like, hey, let's dial back on this because this is really going to be the shining star?
So this might blow people's minds, but really the decorative lighting is where I will cut back now because that can be added.
Yeah.
Right? And I think that if you're doing a great job with providing a quality hardwood floor and tile and great cabinets, those are the bones, right? You don't really need to shove a fancy light fixture in a room that's done well, right? So if you have the cans and all of those things set up, a light fixture can disappear, or it can just be a little, cherry on top, but it doesn't need to be the thing.
So flip side of that coin, where do people naturally want to spend less money than maybe they should?
Interior doors. Doors. It is funny. I mean, windows. I haven't touched on windows. Windows to me are also an everything thing. So people, a lot of times at architecture, will want to save on windows. Not an area to save ever. That is absolutely a game changer. Making sure you have the right person in place, whether it's a me or your architect or an advocate, to make sure your window sill heights and header heights are right, are everything. You can have a fabulous house and miss the mark completely by using a vinyl window or the wrong window.
Yeah.
And setting the sill heights too high. So it's that right in that in of itself is an art. Windows.
So what I'm hearing is that it's the small things.
Yes.
One of your homes that you built in TPC, one of the things I noticed everywhere that was really unique was the hardware.
Oh yeah.
And I feel like it's like super unique. I've never seen it before. And I always feel like I see your designs, and then 5 years later, I feel like the rest of the people in our community kind of catch up to you.
Yeah.
And that seems to be a trend. Like it was the light fixtures. I'd be able to walk into a house and tell Kelly, I'm like, Alison designed this. Like, look at the light fixtures, or look at the backlit mirrors in the powder bathroom. And now I feel like it really is your trip.
Yeah, but you constantly have to be on to the next thing. So and really to pick a fancy light fixture is kind of easy. It really is. But to pick the right door hardware and trim materials and all of those details that really, when they add up, completely outshine a cool light fixture. Plumbing fixtures, we haven't touched on that, but a cheap plumbing fixture can ruin a kitchen, right? So spend a little bit more on quality. And, I'd rather see some quality plumbing fixtures in a kitchen and a more basic countertop that wasn't necessarily over the top in price, but you miter it and make it look thicker. And again, the quality things will make all of those other items in the kitchen rise to their level.
Can I ask you a this or that question?
Sure,
Size or quality?
absolutely quality, hands down. Yeah,
Minimalism or maximalism?
minimum.
Yeah. Open concept or defined spaces?
I'm on the fence there. I think for years, open concept was everything. I'm doing a big remodel right now where defined spaces are necessary, and I'm kind of falling in love with that too. So I'm still probably on team open concept a little more.
So modern or historical renovation?
I would probably go with modern.
Yeah. Same.
Yeah.
Color drenching or earth tone palettes?
Earth tone every time. And my reason for that is the paint color should never be the thing.
Okay.
Ever. Like an accent wall painted is a hard no for me. Maybe a wallpaper that's the accent, or a clay wall or something like that. But art can make up for, and can run circles around a accent painted wall.
Another one for you is like the signature wall, or should we do the whole room?
It depends really on what the material is.
Okay.
I'm okay with a signature wall. If it's a plaster or a clay, I would absolutely say all walls ceiling. If it's a loud wallpaper, which I'm not overly a fan of myself, but then keep it as minimal in the room as possible.
So what about vintage or custom?
Well, if we're talking about fashion, vintage, no. I think custom. I mean, custom's just my thing. There's no limits there. And if there is something vintagey feel when you're doing custom and you have the right people doing custom, we can recreate it. So
I was thinking, like, you build these large, beautiful homes. What allocation of a budget should people save for furnishings? Like, do you have like a number that you usually use, or a recommendation?
I mean, if you're building a $4 million house, I would say 10%.
400,000.
Yeah.
Do you also get involved with like landscaping and like
I do not.
outdoor stuff? Okay.
I do not. I refer that off. I know nothing about that.
Yeah.
I can help lay out a driveway and front porch because that's required to get a CO. But otherwise,
That
Have somebody else do it.
correct.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense.
Stay in the
Okay,
lead.
so you probably follow other designers and are keeping track of trends. What's something that's going on right now that you're just not on board with?
Gosh, you guys, I admittedly don't follow a ton, primarily because it kind of ruins my authenticity because it's so easy to copy. I mean, that's simple. And there's so many beautiful things out there. The wild wallpapers, I never really got on board with that because to me that's very trendy. I've done this in houses, but there's a lot of, like in these modern houses, you're getting a lot of those LED strip light designs in ceilings. That's so trendy to me. It's like, that is gonna be like, when you look back at the typical 70s house, you're gonna look at that and go, oh, that needs redone. So I can't get on board with that.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I'm not overly critical of other people's stuff.
What's something new that you're doing that you're super excited about?
I think that the plaster and clay walls, I'm loving because again, that's more of an organic texture. Everybody jumped to the lime wash train. That's to me the generic version of the clay. It just offers a nice texture and warmth to a room, and so I really like that. That's something new I've been doing a lot of. Wood floors. doing the wider, very long planks is super important to me now. The days of 2 foot, 3 foot, shorty hardwood floors, that to me also can really show a person's budget quickly.
One thing I've noticed that's become a nice budgetary change, I'm saying maybe nice isn't the right word, but is electric fireplaces.
Yeah.
How do we feel about those?
I've never put one in. And so again, because I started this out with timeless and organic, and that to me is just not along the lines. So I've had people want to add that. I would rather just skip it altogether if you can't do the real thing. But that's just my opinion.
No, I feel the same way. So
Okay.
I'm happy to hear that.
Okay.
That might help me later down the road.
And that's actually a new thing. It's not new, but I see a lot of people going to it, are the wood burning fireplaces now. So forever, you had your gas fireplace, you flip the switch, the linear. I'm not doing much linear anymore. I've gone back to more of your traditional open, no glass. Those definitely are a lot more expensive, which is funny because they're built on site, but that's certainly a trend I've been seeing, people leaning into more. Instead of being able to afford 5 fireplaces, though, typically you can get 1. So you just have to be aware of that.
I'm curious what's going to happen with like municipalities and like gas allowances to like homes, like what we're going to see. Because I've also seen like, is it water
Yes,
fireplaces, like steam?
Yep.
Oh, like that.
those exist. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I've not done those yet. And until we're told we have to, then, we'll adapt.
If there's one thing you could leave everybody with, what would it be?
I guess what I would leave everybody with is that there's no right or wrong. There's no box that everything should fit in. If somebody likes something wild and it's like, we can always take it and we can tweak it and we can still make almost anything timeless. So I don't feel that there's a right or wrong. I don't feel like there's a rule to everything or to really anything. So that's probably like, be free to do whatever it is you want, but you have a professional help dial it in to its place.
That's great.
Love it. Well, thanks so much, Allison. This has been great. We'll see you all next time.
Thank you.